The EU is working with G7 partners on a response to China's unjustified export controls on rare earths, which have already disrupted production for some EU companies. Trade Commissioner Maros Sefcovic stressed the need for a coordinated approach and said he is in close contact with G7 counterparts and China to find solutions. Google has announced a $15 billion investment in India over the next 5 years, including a massive data center and AI hub in Indian state of Andhra Pradesh. This new campus will be Google's largest AI investment outside the US, built in partnership with the Adani Group. Pakistan is set to sign a preliminary deal this week with the IMF to unlock a $1.2 billion payout following constructive talks on a loan review. In fact, the government is also advancing its privatization plans, including the sale of Pakistan International Airlines, aiming to boost investor interest and economic reforms. Deadly fire at a garment factory and chemical warehouse in Dhaka, Bangladesh killed at least 16 workers and injured 8 others. Authorities believe toxic gas inhalation was the cause of the fatalities, and the fire, which broke out on October 17, 2025, has been brought under control. US President Donald Trump will be visiting Malaysia on October 26th. Thai Foreign Minister has said that US President Trump is looking forward to witnessing a ceasefire deal between Southeast Asia neighbors Thailand and Cambodia. The Kremlin welcomes US President Donald Trump's focus on peace talks for Ukraine after the Gaza ceasefire and hopes he can push Kyiv towards a settlement. Meanwhile, Russia accuses Ukraine of stalling, while Ukraine says Russia's demands are like asking for surrender. The US and China have rolled out special port fees on shipping firms registered in either countries as the trade war between the two nations continues. The US first announced these fees earlier this year, and China has levied reciprocal fees for US-linked ships in its port, with both set to activate today. Torrential rains that lashed Mexico last week have killed at least 64 people, and 65 more are missing after a tropical depression triggered landslides and flooding in parts of the Gulf Coast and central states. And our top focus this hour, IMF's Gorincha stated that China needs to rebalance its growth model towards domestic demands, highlighting weaknesses in the country's domestic consumption, which have been intensified by the ongoing property crisis. He also noted an increase in volumes of manufactured goods, but a decline in prices, and pointed out that China still has many non-performing loans in the property sector. Meanwhile, the European Union is coordinating with G7 partners in response to China's recent export controls on rare earth minerals, with EU Trade Commissioner Maros Sefcovic calling it unjustified. He emphasized the need for a united response. China's restrictions introduced last week have intensified global shortages, particularly for industries like automotive and semiconductors. Sefcovic and US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick are considering ways to diversify supply chains. Joining us at this point in time is Dr. Satoru Nagao, Fellow Hudson Institute, live with us from Tokyo in Japan. Thank you for your time speaking to us on NewsX World. What do you essentially make of the developments that are taking place at this point in time?
China's restriction to exporting the rare earths is when we check the timing, this was happened just before the negotiation between the U.S. and China. Just before the deadline of the negotiation with the U.S. and China related tariff. So that is the reason it looks like the main target could be the United States, but the reality is a little bit different. Because in case of China's restrictions, it is imposing not only the United States but also the other country, including the all G7 country or India or others. So that's why indeed this is a restriction under the process to change China's strategy towards any part of the world. So under the current situation, China is start to accept a new situation, which is U.S. and the other Western countries see China as a rival. And in the near future, the Western country will diversify the source of the rare earth, and China will lose the domination status about the rare earth supply. So that's why China, before the Western country adjust the new situation, China tried to use this domination status as a card of negotiation. But in the near future, the Western country will decouple with China. China expected, so that's why anyway China will lose the influence towards the Western countries in the long run. So that's why now is the time to use this card to in the negotiation that they are starting. Think that is the reason just now they are. They raise the bar of the restriction to supply the rare earths, I think.
Right, absolutely. I'd also like to understand from you the fact that now the European Union is coordinating with the G7 partners. They said that what's happening is unjustified. What perhaps could their collective response be to this?
Of course, if they coordinate they can develop your minds more speed of developing the rare earth in the other country is of course possible, because they have already identified where is the rare earth outside of China. And but generally the developing process demands 7 to 10 years, so that's why it is not easy to get rare earth just now. But in the near future they need to do anyway, because China is using this dominated status as a negotiation card, and it is dangerous. Then the U.S.-China tariff war or other trade war or rivalries, it will escalate soon. So that's why anyway in the long run they need to do. So that's why the G7 country try to speed up this process and try to diversify the source. That is one thing. And at the same time, of course, to limit China's use of this card, of course, how to make the pressure towards China is matter. So in the negotiation, of course, G7 country can coordinate. For example, exporting the machine to produce a semiconductor is China is rely on the other country. For example, Japan and the Netherlands, these countries. So in this case, it could be the negotiation card if the China limits rare earth production to rare earth supply. Of course, the G7 country can prepare something other card to make pressure toward China. So these other coordination, G7 can do that. And just now, G7's influence is still relatively strong, but in the near future, G7 will lose influence more, but before it, G7 can use this card. And this is, of course, good for G7 too.
Right, absolutely. With that, I'd like to thank you for joining us on NewsX World, sharing your perspectives with us. Moving on to some news that we're tracking from China. Well, in Beijing, Chinese President Xi Jinping held a series of key meetings with leaders from Iceland, Sri Lanka, Ghana, Cambodia and Dominica, reaffirming China's commitment to global cooperation and multilateralism. Meeting Iceland's President Hala Tómasdóttir, Xi called for deeper ties in trade, geothermal energy, healthcare and tourism. Both leaders agreed to strengthen climate action and people-to-people exchanges. A joint statement was issued to boost green transportation and geothermal cooperation. Xi also met Sri Lankan Prime Minister Harini Amarsuya, praising long-standing bilateral ties. Both sides pledged to expand cooperation under the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. Let's in fact listen in to Xi Jinping and Harini's comments.
1957年建交以来，中斯两国始终在和平共处5项原则基础上发展双边关系，树立了不同国家间友好相处、互利合作的典范。希望双方继续一道努力，更续传统友谊，拓展互利合作，更好造福两国人民，为推动构建人类命运共同体做出贡献。
Thank you so much. I also want to note with appreciation your participation and your leadership at the the Global Leaders Forum on Women. I think it was truly inspirational and absolutely very important at this point in the global leadership, where a leader of your stature spoke out for gender equality and for promoting women's rights.
Meanwhile, in talks with Dominica's President Slavini Burton, Xi emphasized solidarity with small island states, vowing deeper engagement across sectors. Let's in fact listen in to Xi Jinping and Slavini Burton's comments.
妇女峰会，我知道这是你首次以总统身份来到中国，很高兴同你会面。你担任总统以来重视发展对华关系，我高度赞赏。多米尼克是中国在加勒比地区的好朋友、好伙伴，建交20多年来，各领域交流合作蓬勃开展，人民友谊日益深厚，树立了不同社会制度、不同大小国家友好合作的。
Your Excellency Xi Jinping, for many of us small island developing states, China's vision of building a community with a shared future for all, where no nation is left behind, has been both inspiring and reassuring. China has been a great friend, indeed a true friend and a valued partner.
The meetings took place on the sidelines of the Global Leaders meeting on women, where China was widely praised for its leadership on gender equality. We leave it there and shift our focus to some developments that we're tracking from India. Well, India's Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai has revealed new details about Operation Sindoor during a briefing to UN Army chiefs. He said over 100 deaths occur along the line of control across cross-border firing in August, as indicated by Pakistan's posthumous awards on August 14th. Lieutenant General Ghai shared before and after images of key strike locations, focusing on Muridke, which he identified as the Lashkar-e-Toiba terror hub. He also presented images from Bahawalpur, highlighting the precision of India's targeted operations. This operation demonstrates India's ongoing efforts to target terror strongholds across the border. Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar, Senior Strategic and Defence Expert, joins us from New Delhi, India. Thank you so much for your time on NewsX World, and I'd like to understand from you. There's, of course, what essentially can we make of these developments that have been put to the place as far as Operation Sindoor is concerned? We're now understanding that there were 100 terrorists that were neutralized.
Thank you very much, Asawari. It's a very, very significant revelation. As a matter of fact, even last month also, when General Ghai spoke at the Defense Forum, he had mentioned this. Today he's speaking to the chiefs of a number of world armies who are contributing to the United Nations. And it's a significant message to the world right now because Pakistan is spreading a canard, and especially I would say General Munir, he has been spreading a very wrong narrative of this 4 days Pakistan-India clash. I'll not call it a war because I will actually call it a clash. What is important is in these 4 days of a non-contact war, who decides who is the winner? Because there is no kind of a kinetic action in terms of a movement of our forces inside Pakistan or Pakistan trying to get inside. So a loss of territory and other things, a loss of equipment, a loss of men, a loss of material, decide the outcome of a war. Here it is all in the realm of information war, a realm of a domain where we can't verify that information, neither Pakistan can actually verify the information. So we have to bring in the use of our surveillances, our satellites, our imagery, and certain developments in Pakistan which have happened. And I would like to bring to the attention of a very important thing what the DGMO actually said. If you go back about a month and a half, there was a huge, big function which Pakistan organized in terms of the gallantry awards being presented, to their men and officers for this operation. And that is what General Ghai is referring to, because it's an admission where around 35 to 40 officers and men of the Pakistan Armed Forces were awarded posthumously, means they had died in that skirmish or that conflict. So it's a very, very clear evidence. We don't have to give the evidence. The Pakistan themselves have given us this evidence that they have lost men in that battle. So it's a sizable number. And if we take the other casualties, because if 40 people have been awarded, the casualties would have been much higher, because not everyone who dies in an operation is awarded with some kind of a gallantry award. So the figure of 100 is quite rational, logical. Second important aspect, and in his briefing, he's trying to bring out that loss of the Pakistan aircrafts, both in air as well as on ground. And this has been proved very, very amply in terms of satellite imagery again, because we are not doing any kind of a rhetoric or anything like that which Pakistan has been doing. We have been presenting things with facts, and when the Indian Army in its briefing, or when the Indian Air Force in its briefing gives you these factual information, it is not a politician who's speaking. Because an army general will not divulge or not indulge in fake news. And therefore, there is a certain amount of credibility. And I would like, through your channel, to appeal to our own countrymen also, not to question what the Indian Army leadership is trying to tell them. And it becomes very amply clear when these around 100 terrorists were killed. What business had the corps commander of the 4 Corps? What business had the GOC of the 11 Infantry Division? What business had the commander of the 15 Mech Brigade? What business had the DG Police of Punjab going there to attend their funeral? Because they were important people who were killed in those terrorist strikes, and especially from Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Toiba, which is an offshoot of the ISI themselves. So it's very, very clear. I think I'm glad the strong message has gone to all these number of army chiefs who have come to attend this event, and it gives a a great amount of credibility, I would say, to the Indian effort, and without any doubt, Asafari, I can say with a conviction, being a veteran today, that I have no doubts that this 4 days clash was won by India.
Absolutely. I'd also like to understand from you, from the Indian point of view, how important was it to attack, to in fact have attacks take place in Muridke, in Bahawalpur, with what mindset and intel were those attacks approached?
Asuri, the mindset was what the Prime Minister was trying to tell the nation in his speeches and all, which he gave was that after the Pahalgam attack, the perpetrators of this attack will not be spared, and so will the people who were responsible or who were at the back end of this attack. So that implies that we carried out a mapping of 21 terrorist hideouts in Pakistan, and we selected the 9 most important ones because there was sufficient intelligence available. See, I would like to clarify to all the you viewers who sometimes say कि आपने 21 terrorist camps को क्यों नहीं strike किया? That requires a detailed intelligent planning, because we would like to strike in only those terrorist camps in which the terrorists are available or present. We would not like to waste an effort on those areas which are minimal headquarters, minimal strength, and economy of effort also goes in. The number of missiles also you fire. It's a great coordinated effort of the Indian Army as well as the Indian Air Force who went into these strikes. So 9 targets of value were selected where terrorists were available according to, and this intelligence I would like to amplify. It is not only electronic intelligence, it was human intelligence. That implies there were people in Pakistan who were passing us this information, and that is why agencies like RAW and all these agencies also come into play, because it was a very, very synergized operation in which the state intelligence, national intelligence agencies were also involved.
Right.
The national security advisor was very actively involved in generating this kind of intelligence for the armed forces to make their plans. So that was the basic reason why we went for this 9.
Absolutely. Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar, appreciate you taking our time on NewsX World, sharing your valuable inputs with us. We leave it there and shift our focus to some other news that we are tracking. While Google's parent company Alphabet is making a massive $15 billion investment in India to build a major AI data hub. The facility will be set up in the port city of Visakhapatnam in the Indian state of Andhra Pradesh. It'll be Google's largest AI center anywhere outside the United States. Google Cloud CEO Thomas Kurian made the announcement in New Delhi, saying the investment will roll out over the next 5 years. The project includes cutting-edge AI and cloud infrastructure powered by renewable energy and supported by expanded fiber optic networks. Alphabet CEO Sundar Pichai says the center will help boost AI innovation and business growth in India. The Andhra Pradesh government says the deal is a major leap for the state's digital future. This move also comes as President Donald Trump urges U.S. tech firms to prioritize domestic investments. However, India continues to attract global players with its fast-growing internet base and low data costs. Joining us at this point in time is Mr. Ajay Dua, economist, joining us live. Thank you for your time speaking to us on NewsX World. Would you say that this development that we're tracking, Google investing as many as $10 billion in a span of 5 years, do you think this is a milestone for India's AI future?
Thank you, Asari, for having me on in your discussion. I think it is $10 billion being invested by one company, large as it might be, is significant by any international standard. The fact that Google, a reputed company, internationally established, shows that India is a feather in India's cap, as well as, I would say, the state of Andhra Pradesh, which would have been involved in the discussions before the announcement got made by the Google senior executives. Two reasons, you've already alluded to those. One is the data centers are highly electricity power intensive. The availability of power infrastructure has become a very important issue in decision making for where would the facility for data processing be set up. I think Andhra, Vizag Port, Visakhapatnam, is ideal for it. It is on the coast. Fair amount of land is available there, and it is possible to augment infrastructure of power there by importing gas and even imported coal, though that will be the second preference, not the first. And largely, Andhra has also done extremely well in renewable energy, particularly solar. So those kind of assurances, combined with the fact that Andhra CM, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, who calls himself as the CEO of Andhra Pradesh, at least during the first term when he was there, earlier terms, is there, that would have played a role. Second, the availability of digitally trained manpower at an affordable price is an extremely important issue because they are also highly manpower intensive. The trend which we have seen in the last few years, last 3 or 4 years, that places which have both these potential to have the electricity as well as make available trained manpower are being chosen by the country, by the multinational companies of the West.
Absolutely.
Earlier, we've seen some of these happening in Malaysia and that part of Southeast Asia, and of late, India, and I would attribute this success also, Sabri, to the fact that the US colleagues, peers of Google, would be seeing the example of Apple, how easily it was able to relocate from China, expand here, and make India a major supplier of smartphones, iPhones to the US.
Absolutely. I request you to stay on with us. We, in fact, have some more news that we're now tracking from Pakistan. Well, Pakistan is set to sign a preliminary deal this week with the International Monetary Fund on the review of its loan program, which is crucial for unlocking another $1.24 billion in funding. The IMF mission recently left Pakistan without signing the staff-level agreement, but ongoing discussions between Pakistan's finance ministry and the IMF have been constructive. The agreement relates to Pakistan's $7 billion extended fund facility and $1.4 billion resilience and sustainability facility aimed at stabilizing the economy after a severe crisis. Pakistan also plans to launch its first green panda bond in Chinese yuan before year end and return to international markets with a bond sale of at least $1 billion next year. Additionally, the government is pushing for privatization of key state assets, including 3 power distribution companies in Pakistan, International Airlines, hoping to distract qualified bidders. These efforts are part of Pakistan's broader economic reforms and fiscal stabilization agenda. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Ajit Duasa. I appreciate you being patient with us, and I'd like to understand from you. It's common knowledge that this is not the first time Pakistan is seeking an IMF loan. How does India view the progress in sealing the deal?
I think we will have to live with it. and it's not a very major deal as far as the standards of IMF are concerned, or even the standards now applicable to us in India. Pakistan, as we all know, has been borrowing hugely from the IMF earlier with the support of the United States, because it had virtually given its, a territorial kind of basis to the US, and US used Pakistan for making intrusions into Afghanistan and elsewhere in Central Asia. That situation seems to have returned somewhat post Prime Minister Sharif and General Munir's or Field Marshal Munir's trips to the US and causing up to President Trump. So they are likely to sign it. I'm not saying, let me just say, the US calls the shots in IMF to a large extent. So they would get this 1.24 billion. It will only add to their previous debts to Pakistan or to the IMF. They've invariably gone in for rescheduling. They take loans to pay back the previous ones. So this $7 billion plus the facility of $1.4 billion on the sustainability fund side is partly to roll over what they could not service in the earlier 17 or 18 billion dollars, which they owe to IMF. So I'm not surprised that they are getting it, and the sanctioning for it of the total amount of $7 or $8 billion had taken place some years ago. Every time an installment is, but what IMF had not agreed was to agree at once to give it to them. They said, we will watch your progress, how you are privatizing, how you are trying to save money. And at one point of time, IMF had also told them that you need to reduce your expenditure on defense. That is a huge expenditure. You borrow from us for a particular purpose, which is developmental, spread out
Right.
usage of it, but you end up using it for the army. But with the US support, I think that rollover they are getting, we need not be perturbed about it, and I think India would not overreact, because this has happened far too many times in the past. We only wish to have, what is our wish? A stable, politically survive, we need to have a stable neighbor, economically, politically, etc. If it is not, if it doesn't get such kind of loans also, it only makes things a little difficult for us, because we have such a long, porous border with Pakistan. And let there be a little bit of improvement in their standards of living. Otherwise, the per capita income is so low in Pakistan. That is why unemployed people turn to terrorism, etc. I'm looking at it in a slightly broader sense and say, let's not be bothered. Let them also get some amount of progress. Let stability in the neighborhood, I reiterate, is good for us. Civil wars happening, as we are seeing of late. Pakistan earlier, fighting in Balochistan, then the northern part, and now even with Afghanistan, could cause a fair amount of problems for them, but at the
Right.
same time encourage the so-called the inexpensive terrorism which they have been resorting to since 1984.
Dr. Dua, it's always a pleasure speaking to you, gaining from your valuable insights. Thank you for joining us. On that note, we leave it there and shift our focus to some developments that we're tracking from Bangladesh. Well, at least 16 people have been killed in a massive fire that broke out at a garment factory and an adjacent chemical warehouse in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Officials say the death toll is likely to rise as rescue operations continue. The blaze started on the third floor of a 7-story building in the city's Mirpur area before spreading rapidly to the warehouse, which reportedly stored bleaching powder, plastic and hydrogen peroxide. Fire officials say the cause of the fire is still unknown, and the authorities are searching for the factory owners, who are yet to be identified. Listen in to what fire service and civil defense spokespersons had to say.
সার্চিং অপারেশন চলছে। আমরা এই পর্যন্ত আনুমানিক 9টি লাশ পেয়েছি, যেটা আপনার বিভিন্ন মানে আপনার যে উপরে মালামাল যেগুলো পুড়ে আপনার হয়ে গিয়েছে, বেসিক্যালি আমরা ধারণা করছি যে এটা কেমিক্যাল, যে প্রথমে একটা বিস্ফোরণ টাইপের হয়েছিল যেখান থেকে আপনার মানে বিষাক্ত গ্যাস, যেটা খুবই টক্সিক, যেটা খুবই ফ্ল্যাশ ওভার হয়ে ওই বিল্ডিংয়ে আসে, আমরা ধারণা করছি।